V8 rear-wheel drive Frankenstein Volkswagen. What? What do you do if you got a front-wheel drive hatchback and that is all you want to do? You jam a big honking V8 under the hood, you strap a 6-speed to it, and you convert that little hatch to rear-wheel drive. Where do you even start? How twisted do you have to be? It's time to go front-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive, bumper to bumper on one of my best buddies' V8 Volkswagen drift car. This VW is owned by Mike Day. You see, before my days here at Donut, I used to work with Mike in Ohio at ECS Tuning. He and my boys back home decided to make some videos about building some drift cars, and in typical Mike fashion, he went a little overboard. We all know the VW Golf. It's ubiquitous. It's the hot hatch. It's largely responsible for making front-wheel drive cool and fun. This one is a Mark III, which is statistically the least popular Golf and, according to Pumphrey, is generally only purchased by real nerds. This one's a 98 and it started life with a 2.8-liter 12-valve VR6 making 174 horsepower mated to a 5-speed transmission, which is honestly a really solid setup. I used to ride to lunch in this thing way back then, but that was a long-ass time ago, long before it was Mike's. And the car's been to hell and back since then. In fact, it was destined for the crusher if it wasn't for Mike giving it a second life as a wild-ass drift car. So how did Mike get this car? Well, when Dr. Frankenstein needed to make his monster, he needed a dead body. Mike found this dead body rotting under a tree in Akron, Ohio. It was growing many types of mold and cancer had taken a hold of the shell. But Mike's got a certain type of blindness, the type that makes all the reasons you shouldn't do something invisible. So just a few months ago, he picked up the shell for $200 and went to work. Time to source a power plant. For that, Magic Mike looked into his own backyard. You see, some years back, Mike had swapped this very drivetrain into his E34 5 Series. It's a BMW M62 4.4-liter aluminum block V8 with a 6-speed transmission, putting about 275 horsepower to the rear wheels. Of course, as it always seems to go, Mike was ready for more power in his 5 Series, so he yanked this drivetrain out of it and gave it to its new little brother, the Golf. Hand-me-down drivetrains, baby. You're a great dad, Mike. So we've got a drivetrain, but what the hell does it take to shoehorn it into this little Golf? 1 part reckless abandon, 2 parts thinking ahead, 1 part sawzall. Okay, maybe 2 parts sawzall. Mike's philosophy is simple. If it's in the way, cut it out. The steering, the suspension, everything. It all had to go. The firewall had to go, as well as a lot of the floor. Mike cut the frame rails off so he could weld his own horns on and then build his own subframe with his own engine mount locations. He had a Nissan steering rack from an S13 240SX laying around, so he tossed that in there too. He also fabbed up some sweet headers and the exhaust all the way back. Looking for all the sweet steering angle and camber he could get, he whipped up some long-ass control arms, modified the Mark III knuckles, and modified some Turner Motorsport camber plates, as well as the stock shock towers to get it all to work in the Mark III. And then he used a set of Bilstein PSS 9 coilovers that are actually for a Mark III Golf. Let's go see what he did for that rear end. So back here in the rear is a diff from, you guessed it, a Ford Explorer. Have you guys ever read the story, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie? Well, in this instance, Mike is the boy with the cookies, and the car is the mouse, and the rear end is the cookie. Of course, this particular cookie would be better with some milk. So Mike had to cut some C-notches into the rear rails to allow for suspension travel of a rear end that was never meant to be there. Then, of course, that also meant trimming the fenders front and rear to fit these 18x9-inch Alzors. And that meant he needed to install these flares. Then he finally got back to the axle, casually whipped up a little 4-link setup, and then took a nap. A well-deserved nap. Now let's take a look under the bumper. And under the bumper we've got this. Mike whipped up a little bash bar for tapping walls with, as well as this, a jack point for quick tire changes, as well as a trailer hitch, just in case he decides to make a trailer to cart around his drift day needs. Of course, why wouldn't he? Can you imagine seeing this thing with a trailer full of drift shit? Let's pop the hatch and see what's going on in there. Dr. Day put some miles on the Sawzall in here. He cut out pretty much the rest of the floor due to rust. So then he made a new floor. And then he made this borderline overkill cage to tie the whole chassis together since so much of it had been cut away. So now he's safe and the chassis is super rigid, just like me. If you haven't picked up on it yet, Mike likes metalwork. He likes making cages, bead rolling, dimple dyeing, welding, and coming up with creative solutions. Case in point, the radiator. There was precious little space left in the engine bay, so naturally, the radiator would have to go in the back like a real drift car. The radiator he chose is for a Jeep XJ. He chose it because of its low and wide and thick shape. It fits real nice. And while he was replacing the rusty rocker panels, he just decided to plumb some steel tube inside of them to flow the coolant from the engine to the radiator and back again. No big deal. There's a fan mounted inside each of the quarter panels, pulling fresh air in through all this nasty ducting, across the radiator and out the back, out all the holes in the hatch. Boom, radiator, done. Simple as that. Now let's get in the car and see what the hell's going on in the old cockpit. Ooh, I feel right at home. All right, well, it's clearly a drift car from in here. We've got a pair of Momo seats mounted on Mike's own brackets on Mike's own floor, a Momo steering wheel on a Frankenstein Mark III Golf and BMW E30 steering column. Next to that, we've got an IRP Hydro, and on Mike's trans tunnel, Turner Motorsport Rally Shifter right next to it. And honestly, everywhere I look, I keep seeing more Mike-made panels. The sunroof delete, the door panels. Look at this custom freaking mono wiper. I feel like I haven't stressed this nearly enough, but Mike did all of this, from shell to what you see today, in like 2.5 months. That's insane. So anyway, he's got a gauge panel here with some Pro Sport gauges to keep an eye on the important things. A little switch panel down here with a couple switches, one for fan and one for party lights. There's a picture of a margarita on that switch. That's probably my favorite. I'm gonna flip that switch. That's enough talking. Let's flip some other switches and turn this thing on. Oh, I want to go drive. Woo. So what does it really take to V8 rear-wheel drive swap your Golf? Well, it takes a big old brain, few Sawzall blades, many feet of welding wire, lots of raw metal, and someone who is clinically insane. It also apparently takes parts from a Volkswagen, several BMWs, a Nissan, a Ford, a Jeep, and a bunch of parts from your own noggin. It definitely takes giving up everything that the VW Golf once was, apart from being fun. But with all the work that's been poured into this thing, my biggest question is, was it worth it? Is it actually any good? Mike says yes. He says it's way better than he expected. He says it's one of the most intuitive cars he's ever driven, and that sliding it around right out of the gate was as comfortable as sticking his hand into an old baseball mitt. All right, that's not actually what he said, but you get the point. He says he likes it, and he says it's good. Let's go do some donuts. Thanks for watching, guys. I had a lot of fun making this video, and if you didn't watch them, we couldn't make them. Subscribe to Donut Media and make sure you hit the little notification bell so you get a notification anytime we drop a new video. Follow Mike on Instagram at MikeTheDay, follow me at Zach Job, follow Donut at Donut Media, and follow my boys at Nolan J. Sykes and James Pumphrey.